Hola, me llamo Max.
Mi nombre es Ian.
Mi nombre es Cameron. Today we will be teaching you about the imperfect tense and the preterite of oír, leer, creer, and destruir.
We will also learn about the irregular preterites and imperfect progressive and preterite.
Finally, we will learn about the preterite ir stem-changing verbs and reflexive verbs.
They can also be used to describe the physical, mental, and emotional states of a person or thing when something happened.
Today's lesson will begin with the imperfect tense. The imperfect tense can be used to tell what time it was or what the weather was like when something happened.
These verbs are often used in the imperfect to describe states of being: estar, pensar, and tener.
Max leaves the house.
Max salía la casa.
In the preterite forms of oír, creer, and leer, the I changes to Y in the third person.
The preterite tense of oír is conjugated oí, oíste, oyó, oímos, oístais, and oyeron.
The preterite of creer is creí, creíste, creyó, creímos, creístes, creyeron. And leer, leí, leíste, leyó, leímos, leístes, leyeron.
Ian y Max destruyeron la casa.
The verbs venir, poner, decir, and traer follow a pattern in the preterite that is similar to that of estar, poder, and tener. All these verbs have the irregular stems and use the same unaccented endings.
Decir changes to dij, estar changes to estuve, poder changes to pud, poner changes to pus, tener changes to tuve, traer changes to traj, and venir changes to veen.
The irregular preterite endings for these verbs are iste, o, imos, istes, ieron, as in puse, pusiste, puso, pusimos, pusistes, pusieron.
Our next lesson is the imperfect progressive and preterite. To describe something that was taking place over a period of time in the past, use the imperfect progressive, which uses the imperfect tense of estar plus the present participle. The present and imperfect progressive tenses use the same present participles. Remember, to form the present participle of ir stem-changing verbs, e changes to I and o changes to u.
These verbs change an e to an I: decir to diciendo, pedir to pidiendo, repetir to repitiendo. O to u verbs, an example of, is dormir to dormiendo. And an example of I to y is leer to leyendo.
When you use the object pronouns with the imperfect progressive, you can put them before estar or attach them to the participle. ¿Qué estabas haciendo cuando te cortaste? Estaba afiendom o me estaba afientando. Cameron was walking. Cameron was running.
Cameron estaba caminando. Cameron estaba corriendo.
In the preterite ir verbs, verbs like prefer, pedir, and dormir also have stem changes, but only in the third person. In these forms, e changes to I and o changes to u. Mi mama se aburro se dormio durante la película.
Pedir changes to pidió and pidieron in the third person, and dormir changes to dormio and dormieron in the third person. Other reflexive verbs use reflexive pronouns and verb forms, but do not have a meaning of a person doing an action, to or for himself or herself. These reflexive verbs often change to describe a change in mental, emotional, or physical state, and can express the idea that someone gets or becomes.
Examples of these verbs are aburrirse to get bored, casarse to get married, divertirse to have fun, dormirse to fall asleep, enojarse to become angry, ponerse to become, and volverse loco to go crazy.
Ian goes crazy.
Ian se volvió loco.
Here are some verbs that you've already learned that use indirect object pronouns. Aberir, to bore. Doler, to ache. Incantar, to love. Fascinar, to fascinate. Gustar, to like. Importar, to matter. Interessar, to interest. Molestar, to bother. Parecer, to seem. Quedar, to fit. These verbs all use similar construction indirect object pronoun. Plus verb, plus subject.
A plus a noun or pronoun is often used with these verbs for emphasis or clarification. The pronouns agree with and clarify the indirect object pronoun.
A mí, me. A ti, te. A usted, a él, a ella, le. A nosotros, a nosotras, nos. A vosotros, a vosotras, os. A ustedes, a ellos, a ellas, le. My foot hurts. Me duele el pie. Our final lesson of the day is the present perfect. The present perfect tense is used to say what a person has done. To form the present perfect tense, use the present tense of forms haber plus the past participle. In the yo form, haber is a. In the to form, as. In the third person, a. In nosotros form, amos. In vosotros form, habéis. And in third person plural form, on. To form the past participle of a verb, drop the ending of the infinitive and add ado for AR verbs and ido for ER and IR verbs.
Some verbs are irregular in past participles. Decir, dicho. Devolver, devuelto. Escribir, escrito. Hacer, hecho. Morir, muerto. Poner, puesto. Romper, roto. Ver, visto. Volver, vuelto.
When you use object or reflexive pronouns with the present perfect, the pronoun goes immediately before the form of haber.
Adios!
A plus a noun or pronoun is often used with these verbs for emphasis or clarification. The pronouns agree with and clarify the indirect object pronoun. A mí, me. A ti, te. A ude.
You're such an idiot.
It can also be used to describe the physical, mental, and emotional state.
Go. Verbs are often used in the imperfect to describe states of beings. Examples of these verbs are estar, pensar, and tener.